Eleanor Tarrant, Fox News reporter, with an inside scoop, someone that just left the SEC, stating there's probably going to be an SEC appeal. So we're going to go through this, look at exactly what she says. And this really isn't anything new. We've heard from a lot of people that have the opinion that, the SEC is likely to go ahead and appeal that ruling. So we'll look at why they may. We'll see what Mark Fagel has to say about it, Jeremy Hogan. Then we'll kind of examine, what does this really mean? How much does it matter to us? It's not nothing, and it ain't everything. It's somewhere in between. All right, so let's see what Eleanor said. She says, a former SEC lawyer who recently left the agency tells me the SEC will probably appeal Judge Torres's July 2023 ruling concerning XRP's programmatic sales in the Ripple case, partly because, and this is the quote, everyone over there at the SEC truly believes the decision is wrong and that it's not good law and it should be appealed. And, I'll tell you this, that's all well and good. And they may not like the ruling, but this is what I think is going on here. It's not that they agree it's wrong. They just don't like it. Gary Gensler himself has said many times there's a big difference from not liking the law to not understanding it. And for sure, we'll kind of look at what Mark Fagel has to say, but I know it's his opinion. The outcome doesn't make a lot of sense, just doesn't feel right that these institutional investors, very sophisticated, they get extra protections. It's required that Ripple gives them extra disclosures and registers, but then on the open market, selling to unsophisticated investors, they get nothing. They're just left on their own. Like, that result doesn't feel right. And what does this really tell us? Because I agree with them. That doesn't make a lot of sense. It's not what we would desire, but it tells us we need new regulations. We need clear laws. And it'd be great if we got quarterly reports or annual reports, information we can rely on from a lot of these crypto projects. I think that is the future. But for right now, what is the law? Did Judge Torres make the correct decision? That's what's important. And what's the advantage of the SEC if they appeal this? They don't like the outcome. Is it going to get better for them at appeal? Should they allocate, limited resources, time towards this endeavor? And will it just make the situation worse? That's the question we ask here. We see Jeremy Hogan. He says the following. Of course they think the opinion is wrong. They were on the losing side. And this is what's interesting. When we look at what Ripple won and what the SEC won, it's about equal amount of sales. The penalty would have been about the same. But the SEC, they care about those programmatic sales. They care about the secondary market. They care about exchanges. And so it really wasn't a great outcome. But you had to know it could have been the outcome as we went into that. And Mark Fagel kind of forecasted that as well. He says, I feel the way the laws are, the SEC may lose on a big chunk of this case. And that's exactly what happened. Jeremy says, what the SEC should be thinking of right now is whether an appeal furthers its mandate of investor protection and capital formation. Why isn't that on top of its mind? More evidence the SEC has lost the plot. I'll give you my opinion that I put up here as the non-attorney here. I'm no professional, but I really believe if the SEC believes Judge Torres made the wrong decision on those programmatic sales, if they truly look at the law and think that's a security offering, then they should appeal. Not only should they appeal, they must appeal. The secondary market often involves less sophisticated investors who would need protection the most. They can't let that fly, of course. But the real question here is, was the ruling truly incorrect? Or is it the SEC simply doesn't like the outcome? And I'll reiterate this, as Gary Gensler often says, disliking a law is different from not understanding. You saw what Judge Torres put out there. It's well thought out. When we look at these crypto assets, they're not equity in anything. They're not a debt security. If the asset itself is not a traditional security, then you have to wrap it in some sort of investment contract in order for that to be a security offering. And that's exactly what Judge Torres laid out. And so if you're not doing that, if you're just selling on a blind transaction on the secondary market, like when you look through her reasonings, it looks like her logic was sound. And I don't think most people will argue with that. I think they will just yell at this guy and say, This isn't fair. We should have the SEC in charge of regular retail investors and not institutions. And again, what does that tell us? We need some clear laws. We need some new regulations. And we've been yelling at the top of our lungs, this is what's necessary. And they keep telling us the rules are awful clear. The rules apply, all this kind of stuff. Well, you just got that from Judge Torres, how the rules apply. And again, I think on an appeal, you're likely to get the same result. If the SEC just doesn't agree with the current law, that's what Gary says. You should appeal. You shouldn't appeal, but you should push Congress for updated regulations. He always says that. If people or if Congress doesn't like what the rules are, well, Congress can write new ones, right? It goes both ways here. It's a two-way street. It goes for the SEC as well. The law is the law, and I think Judge Torres correctly applied the law. And it's hard to argue otherwise. Now, we'll see at Mark Fagel. He says, well, they lost on programmatic sales. They won on institutional sales. I don't know about most. And he's talking about that quote that most people at the SEC thought Judge Torres got it wrong. But he personally believes that. Now, in terms of dollars, the sales were roughly even, so it's not really a dollars and cents type of thing. But he says, I do think the loss on programmatic sales is a significant issue, which is why I think they should appeal. If you really talk to Mark on this issue, he will talk about how the result doesn't make sense, but not that the law says it should be something different. Mark just doesn't like the feel of this result. And it's hard to argue that an institution would get more protection, would be required to be given more disclosures than the everyday person. That doesn't seem right, but that's what the law states. And guess what? That institution they can buy in the secondary market, and then you have no security offering, and they're not required to give them anything. So, it's not exactly as they paint this picture. But, the outcome isn't probably great for anyone. Ripple, they lost. They have to pay a lot of money. That's unfair. Probably these projects should be giving us some sort of report so we can see what's really going on behind the scenes and invest in these assets with confidence. But until Congress writes those laws, this is what we have. And that's the real criminals here. They got to get that done. So what's going to happen here? Again, it's a hard one for the SEC to stomach. Now, they did get the ruling that sometimes these assets can be offered as a security, so that's a win there. Can they live with this result? I'm not Gary Gensler. I'm not even an attorney. I have no idea. We will find out. What does this mean for the XRP investor if they do appeal? At the end of the day, this is what's going to happen. It's going to take your top-end price appreciation, and it's going to shave a little bit of that off. XRP is going to do better than it did last time around. It has far more liquidity. An appeal likely will not cost us listings on major U.S. exchanges like Coinbase and Kraken and the whole rest of them that service the U.S. market. While the U.S. isn't everything, it's significant. And so it's going to make a big difference. Further, there's been a lot of improvements to the XRP ledger. There's a lot of exciting things going on right now. When this space really goes on a bull run, and it's the first time in history where yahoos can just fire up that Coinbase app during a bull run and buy XRP, I think they're gonna do it. And it's gonna make all the difference. So we know XRP is gonna probably do better. The question is how much? And part of that equation is gonna be, is there an appeal? Because if there is, there's gonna be a lot of institutions out there that may like to have XRP in their investment portfolio, and they're just not going to touch it because there's extra risk, there's ongoing litigation, they're just going to stay away. Further, you're going to have ETFs that continue to roll out, and even if it's not singular ETFs, there's going to be bundled products. So you're going to have payment ETFs, DeFi ETFs, AI ETFs within cryptocurrencies, and you want XRP included there because guess what? Those things are market cap weighted. And so every one of those you include XRP in, it's going to get a big, chunk of that investment capital, even if it's not the only thing in that product. We want to see that. Well, if there's an appeal, if there's ongoing litigation directly with Ripple, you probably don't see as much of that, if any of it. So it's going to hurt us on our top end, price targets, but it's not going to stop XRP. It's not going to stop XRP from doing better. I think that's what matters. I wouldn't sit around and really worry about this situation. We have no control over it. Just see how it transpires and then just factor that into your analysis. When things start really taking off, there's an ongoing appeal, bring those targets down a little bit. If there's not, get ready because the sky really is the limit and we'll see it play out. And that's all we can do. Let me know what you think down below, though. As always, please like, please subscribe. The revolution will be televised right here on Jungle Link.